My grandma? Yes, I got to meet both of them. Like I said, I was 7 years old when my grandpa passed. He was born in 1876. He died in 1978. He was pretty mad. Roughly about 80-something years old, maybe 87. Like I said, the experience I know is just grandma and grandpa cooking good breakfast in the morning. My grandpa would leave, go out of town, which I didn't understand, and he would just come back and have a lot of money. Didn't know what he was doing at the time until I found out some years later after he passed away what his actual talent was. I remember on Sunday mornings, Sunday afternoons rather, there would just be as many people who could fit in his yard, out just sitting around, just listening to him play music on the porch. They used to just call it a gathering. That's what they call it back in those days. But he would play for anybody who wanted to listen. That's just how much he had a love for the music. Yes, ma'am, he did. He played in all 50 states. He traveled the world. He was actually discovered in later years. He got discovered around about the age of, around about 61. That's when he actually got discovered and signed to a record label. But he was fortunate enough before he passed away to travel to all 50 states playing.
This is the porch that they played.
Where was the porch? The home that he used to live in was off Piedmont Road. I would say it's north of town, headed towards Highway 90, like you're going towards, not Highway 90, I'm sorry, Highway 6 going towards Bryan College Station. Yeah, it's recently torn down due to city inspections. We were hoping someday that we can actually get it re-erected in the same form that it was. It wouldn't be the original building, but it would be a replica of what it used to look like. My knowledge, strictly blues. Right now, he has a couple of murals in town. One posted in the Y'all Very Own cafeteria. There is a statue down by the China Inn restaurant between down to the China Inn restaurant and Brooks Brothers. There was a park renamed after him. It used to be Duke's Park. Now it's renamed Mance Lipscomb's Park. And the Blues Alley, there's a big mural painted on the side. And if you go to what I call the main red light in town, going towards, I would say south, towards John Davis Station, there's a big mural painted on the side of the wall. It was placed there, and that was, I'm going to say, about 5 years ago. But his main instrument was acoustic. He had a way of, as they said, making the guitar talk. And that's just music terminology, but from what I gather from other people telling me, he was a wizard when it came to making an instrument. Well, I had a few brothers and sisters and nephews who kind of picked up the music side. From what I've seen, which some of his music is posted on YouTube, he was basically doing what they call sittings, playing by himself. He would just basically sit in a chair and play music till he got tired of playing. Blues Alley, one of them, he had several. A couple of family members. Like I said, I'm the youngest grandson of Mr. Mance Lipscomb. So a lot of his artifacts and stuff was, you know, I already spread it out to other family members. I have a brother who works for the district named Jimmy Lipscomb, plays a little music instrument in the church. I had a brother who also played drums in a band. I had a brother who played the guitar. I had a nephew who played drums. Now, of course, me, I didn't take up that side. I was just an athlete. Playing sports was me. That's my dad, Mance Lipscomb Jr. Yes, Annie Hall, Ruby Lipscomb, and Richard Lipscomb were the three that he adopted. One being a nephew, two being two of my sisters. Not as much as we should. Like I said, I'm the youngest, living in Navasota. That's Jimmy and me. We're the two that lives here in Navasota. I have a sister that lives in Old Washington. I have a sister who lives in Charlotte, Texas. I have two brothers and sisters who live in Houston. Now, my dad had 23 kids. He fathered 10 from my mother and 13 by 2 other women. And so I am the youngest of 23 kids. Yeah. Chance? I'm quite sure he did, but like I said, you know, I was so young I couldn't remember. Like I said, my main thing about my grandfather was just playing music. And that's what he did, that's what he loved to do. I think he had a hobby. He raised greyhounds, you know, for hunting purposes. I remember very well because the greyhounds were taller than me when I was a kid. And he used them to hunt ducks.
Did you ever want to do music like this? You did.
Did I ever want to do music personally? Honestly, not really. I do sing in the choir, but that's about as close as I'm going to get to music talent. Never really picked up the instrument part of it. Like I said, my main thing was sports. You know, I grew up, basically when you have 22 older brothers and sisters, you know, you get roughed up quite a bit sometimes, so I just got into sports. That was my outlet.
Does your family?
Honestly, it probably would be the day of his burial, which seems ironic, but I really got a chance to see how many lives my grandfather touched by the number of people who showed up at his funeral. There were so many people that they actually couldn't fit into the church. There was probably more people outside the church than there was inside. It was Lee Tabernacle. That's where they held the funeral service. Yes, he is. He is buried in Rest Haven Cemetery, which is about probably 125 yards from where I live.
Do you go visit him a lot?
Not a lot. To be honest with you, I try to let the dead have their peace and the alive have their peace. I did 2 years ago do a skit in the graveyard by my grandfather's grave. It was called Lanterns and Legends. And they picked me and my brother and my nephew to portray my grandfather. And I done that and had a very good time doing it. My grandfather had one. Discovered playing music. He suffered a almost near-death experience with a load of lumber fell on top of him. Down in Houston, Texas, a truck was misproperly loaded, and he happened to be in the area walking by, and lumber fell and nearly took his life. And got him a lawyer, and you know, in these days' time, you know, people want to be compensated, and he did get compensated. And after that, he came back home.
Did he ever have any problem with racism?
Yes, he did. Unfortunately, in those days and times, some form of slavery still exists. Back then, you know, education was limited for African Americans, so most of his life it was spent as a sharecropper working in the fields. But he didn't let that deter him from being who he was. You know, in those day and times, you had to adapt to the day and times as it was. But you know, he paved the way for his family, and he still paved the way for other young men and women to further their education. Grandfather's name was given to him by another person. Mance meaning immaculate patient, meaning not a slave anymore, means free. That's where his name originated from. Honestly, Tabitha, no. I do believe my grandfather is in a better place. It's sad to say, with today's society and the way things are, I'm quite sure his legacy, the way he's seen things happening, is not how he would have enjoyed or not been going to be a part of the way things are happening now.
Would you like him to be more in your life? Like you said, you were 7 years old when he died. Would you like him to be more? Yeah,
I think every kid would love to have their grandparents longer, but the 7 years that I did know him, it was no wasted time. We didn't have much, but like I said, what we did have was unity, family, and love.